Linear A. To this day, scientists have been unable to decipher the ancient language of the Minoans, despite centuries of effort. Should they ever succeed, history could be changed forever. This language bears an almost unbelievably simple name, Linear A. The Minoans, named after the legendary King Minos, once inhabited the island of Crete during the Bronze Age. They began as a primitive Neolithic culture more than 5,000 years ago and eventually evolved into a complex urban society. By around 2,000 years before Christ, the Minoans had reached the height of their prosperity. After 1450 BC, they blended with the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece, and this merging ultimately led to their decline. The cultures gradually fused until the Minoans were no longer distinct from the Mycenaeans. Then disaster struck. Around 1200 BC, the Bronze Age civilization collapsed. Crete was ravaged, coastal settlements were abandoned, and palaces crumbled into ruins. Scientists have no clear answer as to what happened, and they would, if only they could read Linear A. There are more than 1,400 Linear A inscriptions that remain undeciphered. The entire history of the Minoans is recorded on those clay tablets, from their origins to their downfall. Until this language is translated, the Minoan civilization will remain an intricate mystery. What makes this even more frustrating is that Linear B, the language of the Mycenaeans, has been deciphered since the 1950s. Linear A was used on Crete, while Linear B was employed on the mainland. When the two cultures merged after 1450 BC, Linear A vanished, giving way to Linear B. It is clear that a connection exists between the two languages, yet scientists have not uncovered it. They continue to study the strange symbols etched into the Minoan clay tablets. These characters are truly enigmatic, making the task of decoding them nearly impossible. The Giant in the Cave. In 2002, during Operation Enduring Freedom in the remote mountains of Afghanistan, an elite United States Special Forces team was said to have killed a gigantic creature. Their original mission was to hunt down Taliban forces in the Kandahar region, but what unfolded went far beyond any tactical expectation. While marching across the treacherous highlands, the soldiers came upon a strange cave hidden in the rocky desert. From within, a foul stench, like rotting flesh, drifted out, forcing the entire squad to halt. They decided to enter, hoping to locate the source of the horrific smell. But what awaited them in the darkness was not human. According to the account, the creature that attacked them stood about 13 feet tall, with fiery red hair, 6 fingers on each hand, and dagger-like double rows of teeth. Wielding a massive spear, it charged into battle and killed several soldiers before finally being brought down by a hail of gunfire from the survivors. After the beast was slain, its body was immediately airlifted away by a military helicopter. From that day forward, the remains were never seen again. Rumors persist that its corpse is locked away deep within an underground military facility, sealed off completely from the outside world. However, the United States Department of Defense has officially denied the entire incident. They insist there is no record of any Special Forces member ever being killed by a giant in Kandahar. According to the military, the event never happened. Yet for many, the story of the giant in the cave remains suspended between truth and legend. Merritt Castle. Amid the dusty desert, at an elevation of more than 500 meters above sea level, stands the towering Merritt Castle. Located in the ancient town of Dumat al-Jandal in northwestern Saudi Arabia, it rises like a colossal sandcastle abandoned by time. Despite its appearance as something sculpted from a child's game, Merritt is believed to have been built around the 3rd century, just before Queen Zenobia of Palmyra launched her conquest. Historical records say that about 1,700 years ago, Dumat al-Jandal rose in rebellion against Zenobia's power. The queen marched her army to suppress the uprising but was met by Merritt's unbreakable walls, which she could not breach. At that time, Zenobia had conquered most of eastern Rome, even annexing Egypt and Anatolia. Yet at Merritt, her advance came to an abrupt halt. Eventually, Zenobia proclaimed her son emperor in the year 272, only to be quickly defeated by Rome, captured, and taken to the city where she lived the rest of her life in captivity. Merritt continued to serve as an important outpost during the Islamic period of the 7th century, before it was abandoned and fell into ruin. The ghost ship in the Namibian desert. In 2008, along Namibia's coastline where the desert meets the sea, diamond miners discovered a shipwreck buried for 5 centuries. Inside lay a treasure worth $113 million in gold. The ship was uncovered while the De Beers Company was constructing a seawall for mining operations. When the water was pumped out, the wreck and its treasure were revealed. The gold coins alone were valued at $13 million at the time of discovery. Researchers believe this was the bomb Jesus, which sank around 1535 while carrying 44,000 pounds of copper, gold, and ivory on its route to India. Jabal al-Haredi. Jabal al-Haredi is one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Egypt's Sohag region. From the 6th dynasty of the Old Kingdom to the late Roman era and even the Coptic period, traces of successive civilizations remain etched into this land. The Sohag area has been inhabited since around 2700 BC, with settlement continuing for 5,000 years. In a recent excavation, researchers uncovered a mysterious mud brick tower, believed to have been built to monitor the Nile River and the main road leading into the area. It is thought that this tower once served as a watchpost, where guards kept constant surveillance, collected taxes from travelers, and recorded the names of those entering their territory. The structure dates back to the reign of Ptolemy III, between 246 and 222 BC. Archaeologists also discovered a magnificent temple dedicated to the goddess Isis, the deity associated with the resurrection of Osiris and the birth of Horus. More than 85 tombs were found carved deep into the mountainside, filled with countless mummies and burials hidden beneath the earth. Sohag still holds countless secrets waiting to be revealed, and what has been uncovered so far is only the tip of the iceberg. Ta Prohm Temple. Amid the ruins of Angkor in Cambodia lies an ancient temple called Ta Prohm, where the jungle has slowly swallowed the structure over centuries. Giant tree roots snake across the stone walls like massive brown serpents, destroying and embracing the pathways. Most of the walls have collapsed, leaving only piles of rubble. What makes Ta Prohm particularly mysterious is an unusual carving. Among the familiar floral patterns and animal images created by the Khmer Empire 8 centuries ago, there is a depiction that looks exactly like a stegosaurus, a dinosaur believed to have gone extinct 66 million years ago. This is entirely illogical, as the Khmer people had no knowledge of paleontology. The stegosaurus carving sits among depictions of deer, water buffalo, parrots, and monkeys all arranged in the same circular pattern. Could it be that the Khmer once found a complete skeleton? Or perhaps they witnessed a surviving group of dinosaurs in Cambodia? If so, what became of them? No one knows the answer. Some speculate that the last of these creatures might have been wiped out when the Siamese army destroyed Angkor in 1431. The City of Bones. In 2011, archaeologists uncovered a horrifying scene at the ancient village of Hamin Mangha in northeastern China, 97 bodies crammed inside a single house. This site dates back to around 3000 BC, making it over 5,000 years old. The dead ranged in age from 19 to 35, and all were buried hastily, as if struck by a sudden catastrophe. Since then, researchers have wrestled with one haunting question. What happened here? Why were nearly 100 people left abandoned in the same house? Did they die from a natural disaster, or were they trapped in an inescapable fire? The possibility of a fire is considered unlikely. There are also no signs that they were massacred by an invading army. If this had been a Neolithic slaughter, the bodies likely would not have been buried, even haphazardly. Instead, the most plausible theory is that they died from an epidemic. Many scientists believe the culprit was Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for the Black Death that devastated Europe thousands of years later. While there is no absolute proof linking the plague to this site, other archaeological evidence suggests the Black Death appeared in Europe as early as the Neolithic era, implying it could very well have struck China at the same time. One notable theory points to rats, the carriers of the plague, being attracted to these new settlements. These early communities were among the first in China to domesticate animals and practice agriculture. Living close to livestock allowed diseases to spread easily, while stockpiled food drew rats in. This created a deadly formula born from human progress. The house filled with corpses stands as a grim testament to one of humanity's first tragedies, where prehistoric people unwittingly sowed death in their quest to build a more advanced society. Gallimimus. Gallimimus was an unusual dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous period, feeding on both plants and meat. It was one of the earliest omnivores, belonging to the theropod group, walking on 2 legs and measuring up to 6 meters long, only about 10 feet shorter than the fearsome Gorgosaurus. Unlike its ferocious relatives, Gallimimus had long arms with flexible fingers that allowed it to catch small prey. It also had a sharp beak, which it used to strike at its victims. This adaptability enabled Gallimimus to thrive in harsh environments where many other dinosaurs struggled. The first fossil specimen was discovered in 1964 in Mongolia's Gobi Desert. Its name means chicken mimic because researchers thought it resembled a giant chicken, though it weighed up to 4 tons and lived 70 million years ago. To this day, debate continues over whether Gallimimus was strictly carnivorous or truly omnivorous. Some scientists believe it used its claws to dig for roots, while others argue it primarily hunted small animals. Regardless, Gallimimus was one of the fastest-running dinosaurs, with an estimated speed reaching 35 miles per hour. The mysterious sphere of the Betz family. In 1974, deep in the untamed forests of Fort George Island, Florida, a strange discovery took place. While exploring the area around their home, the Betts family stumbled upon a small, perfectly round metallic object that looked very much like a bowling ball. However, when placed on a scale, it proved to be far heavier than any ball used by professional athletes. The sphere was suspiciously dense, as if forged from some unknown metal. At first, the Betts family assumed it was merely an old cannonball left behind from the Spanish colonial era, a relic buried in the forest for centuries. But after bringing it home and cleaning away the dirt, they were shocked to realize this object was something entirely different. Its surface gleamed without a single trace of rust, showing no signs of having ever been fired from a cannon or decayed after centuries in the wilderness. The real strangeness began when the sphere started emitting odd noises. It vibrated with such strong frequencies that the family feared it might explode at any moment. Their dog became terrified whenever it was near the object. Even more bizarre, the sphere could move on its own, rolling through the house as if guided by an unseen intelligence. The phenomenon quickly caught the attention of authorities. The object was handed over to the US military for analysis. However, representatives from the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville admitted to the St. Petersburg Times that they could not X-ray the sphere because its steel shell was too thick for any device to penetrate. They confirmed that it originated on Earth, contained no explosives, and had no connection to alien technology. While they could not determine who had created it, they rejected any claims of extraterrestrial involvement. To this day, the mystery of the Betts sphere remains unsolved. Some believe it to be a doomsday device left behind by aliens, while others think it was a piece of a metallic satellite that fell from orbit. Despite numerous theories, most experts still regard it as nothing more than an oversized stainless steel ball, an ordinary object cloaked in an aura of mystery. The treasure in the trenches. During the brutal years of World War I, amid relentless trench warfare, soldiers unexpectedly uncovered an ancient Greek treasure while digging through the battlefields. Trench warfare at the time was fought under harsh conditions, with combat spreading from one crude pit to another, turning much of Western Europe into a vast network of tunnels. Continuous digging accidentally brought ancient relics back into the light. Yet during that era, archaeology was not a priority. Treasures, ancient history, and forgotten sites received little attention. Only after the war ended and Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb did a passion for archaeology begin to surge worldwide. Even so, many artifacts were found during the war. In Greece, soldiers digging trenches in various cities unearthed the remains of settlements and cemeteries dating back nearly 3,000 years. They uncovered bronze and gold jewelry, the graves of mysterious women, and the skeletal remains of prehistoric warriors. From 1918 to 1925, British and French archaeologists worked to collect these treasures, many of which were sent to European museums. Recently, the Kilkis Antiquities Authority in Greece organized an exhibition to showcase these extraordinary artifacts once found in the deadly trenches. All roads lead to the sea. On the remote island of Malden in the Pacific Ocean, every road seems to lead into the sea. This tiny island, covering only 15 square miles, hides a secret the world may not yet be ready to accept. Today, Malden Island is completely uninhabited. Only the occasional visitor passes through while crossing the Pacific. The island is strictly protected as a breeding ground for dozens of bird species. But in the past, it was home to people. The island is littered with ruins from an unknown civilization. It's hard to believe that anyone ever lived here, where not a single drop of fresh water exists. The land rises no more than 10 meters above sea level, meaning one strong wave could have wiped everything away. In 1825, Lieutenant Charles Robert Malden discovered the island while aboard the HMS Blonde. Alongside a naturalist, he explored and found crumbling temples and mysterious megalithic structures. During the 19th century, instead of studying the ruins, people mined bird guano here for 70 years. It wasn't until the 1930s that an anthropology team from the Bishop Museum in Honolulu examined the remains. Anthropologist Kenneth Emery proposed that the temples were built by a small group of Polynesians who lived on the island for several generations before moving on, possibly to Tahiti or Hawaii. Although this theory is plausible, it does not tell the whole story. It's possible that long before the Polynesians, a much older civilization once thrived on Malden Island, leaving behind traces that still baffle humanity. All roads lead to the sea. Part 2. On Malden Island, archaeologists identified 21 sites, an astonishing number for such a small place. The island holds temple foundations, tombs, and houses. Kenneth Emery believed no more than 200 people ever lived there, yet they built an entire network of roads radiating outward from the island's center. These roads were paved with massive basalt slabs, fitted together perfectly like puzzle pieces. The strangest part is that they lead nowhere logical. Some start at ruined temples, others connect temples together, but most cross the island, reach the shore, and disappear beneath the waves. Scattered across the island are strange stone mounds resembling tiny pyramids. And this isn't the only place in the Pacific where such mysteries exist. 1,000 miles away, on Rarotonga Island, there is a paved road leading into the ocean. On Pohnpei Island, 3,400 miles away, small pyramids are linked by ancient pathways. Researcher Mitch Williamson suggests that the culture behind these roads may be at least 50,000 years old. He believes the entire Pacific was once a massive continent, home to a flourishing civilization. When the continent sank, its network of roads was destroyed, leaving only fragments scattered across small islands. After guano mining ended in the 1930s, Malden was abandoned until 1956, when the British used it to test hydrogen bombs. They nearly destroyed the island. Today, Malden is so remote that almost no research takes place there. Yet, it may hold evidence of a pre-flood civilization if only someone would fund an expedition to explore its underwater secrets. The Agora of Athens. The Agora of Athens once served as a gathering place for free citizens from the 13th to the 4th century BC. It was one of the most important public spaces in the Mediterranean, originally used to announce military orders and public decrees. Over time, the Agora became the heart of Athenian life, where everyone from ordinary citizens to leaders discussed city affairs. The first democratic groups emerged here, shaping the very concept of democracy. Famous philosophers walked these grounds, debating the great questions of the universe. The Panathenaic Way ran through the Agora, connecting the city to the Dipylon Gate. While many ancient cities had agoras, Athens stood out as the cradle of democracy. It was home to the legendary Temple of Hephaestus and shrines to Zeus, Apollo, Ares, and Athena. Fountains, statues, and towering columns provided shade for those strolling through. It was here that ancient Athens laid the foundations for the world we know today. Ireland's National Heritage Park. Ireland's National Heritage Park takes visitors on a journey back in time, not only recreating the country's history, but also opening a window into the Mesolithic era. The site features 16 reconstructed models, beginning with 2 structures dating back to 9000 BC. Small thatched huts with wooden frames, typical dwellings of Ireland's hunter-gatherers 11,000 years ago, known as hawk houses. Boxes to Reckon Vask. Their friend. And friend for cruise. There is also a Neolithic longhouse built about 6,000 years ago, marking the period when people moved inland from the coast, began farming, and domesticated animals. This was also when the Irish started building megalithic monuments. Today, more than 1,000 such stone structures are scattered across Ireland, including the Ballykeal Portal Tomb and the Drombeg Stone Circle in County Cork, all recreated in the park. Although the park opened only in 1987, it spans 40 acres that were once a ferry port active for 1,000 years. It perfectly recreates a Neolithic village, just as it would have existed 1,500 years ago. Tuzigoat. Tuzigoot, located in Arizona, was once home to nomadic Native American groups about 1,600 years ago. Among them were the Sinagua people, a pre-Columbian culture that thrived around Flagstaff, controlling a vast territory from the Little Colorado River to the Verde River and the San Francisco Peaks. One of the few remaining structures of their civilization is Tuzigoot. First excavated in 1933 by Edward Spicer and Louis K. Wood, it became one of Arizona's first archaeological sites open to the public. A museum and visitor center were later built, and in 1939, President Roosevelt declared Tuzigoot a U.S. national monument. Constructed around 1125 AD on a ridge rising 120 feet above the Verde River plain, Tuzigoot was a massive stone complex of more than 110 rooms, many of which had no doors and could only be entered through holes in the roof. This was one of the last great structures of the Sinagua. After several phases of development, they abandoned the area in the 15th century and never returned. The White City, a legend in the Honduran jungle. Deep in the jungles of Honduras lies a forgotten city known as the White City. The Spanish claimed to have seen it centuries ago, and later European explorers confirmed its existence. According to ancient accounts, the city was built to honor a mysterious monkey god worshipped by an unnamed civilization, with dazzling white stone structures. For the past century, archaeologists have searched for the White City, comparing it to El Dorado or Atlantis. Not until 2015 did a team of scientists venture deep into the La Mosquitia region, one of Honduras's most dangerous areas, and uncover its ruins. Using satellite imagery and laser scanning technology, they found evidence of an ancient city dating back 1,000 years. However, the area's dangers from smugglers and illegal loggers have made further research difficult. The expedition uncovered plazas, monuments, and even a pyramid. Oscar Castro, from the Honduran Institute of Anthropology and History, confirmed the city dates back at least to the year 1000. Still, the team had little time to conduct extensive surveys. The city was clearly once magnificent, but a pressing question remains. Was this the legendary White City, where a mysterious culture worshipped the monkey god? Since then, no one has returned, and the ruins are slowly being reclaimed by the jungle. The Aztec floating gardens in Mexico City. Archaeologists have recently uncovered the remains of a mysterious Aztec house, more than 800 years old, built during the final days of the Aztec Empire. The site, located in the Centro district, was discovered when workers were modernizing the area to install an electrical substation. The house once stretched across more than 1,300 square meters, built between 1200 and 1521, right on the boundary between two major neighborhoods of ancient Tenochtitlan. Strangely, 8 centuries ago, this area was full of canals and lush nature, a stark contrast to today's urban landscape. Archaeologists found a dock where boats once unloaded goods. The house had its own pier, proving it sat directly on the edge of a lake or city canal. Beneath the floor, they uncovered funerary urns, the remains of many infants, tools, and a massive stone statue. After the Spanish conquest, the house of this Aztec nobleman was transformed into public baths. Evidence of this includes fragments of tiles, pipes, drainage systems, concrete slabs, and European construction materials found at the site. From a lavish mansion, the place was reduced to a public bath under Spanish rule. The Bonet Ruins. Scattered among the hills of Mpumalanga Province, South Africa, lie the remnants known as the Bonet Ruins, believed to be what is left of an ancient settlement supposedly built by the Bonet people in the 16th century. If this theory is correct, they are only about 500 years old. However, some historians argue they are far older, with bold claims suggesting the ruins could date back as far as 250,000 years. The gap between these estimates is staggering, and to this day, no one has determined their true age. Today, all that remains are crumbling stone walls forming a crude labyrinth. Professor Peter Delius of the University of Witwatersrand believes the Bonet people once practiced advanced agriculture and possessed sophisticated technology, altering the landscape to manage livestock and enhance farming through irrigation across the grasslands. Even so, the exact time when they achieved these advancements remains unknown. The theory of a 250,000-year-old origin seems unrealistic, as it would imply that Paleolithic humans built monumental structures, while the rest of the world still lived in caves and primitive conditions. The Bonet ruins remain a mystery. No one knows when they were built, why they were constructed, or whether they were part of a lost city in South Africa. Researchers believe that if the site is preserved and developed for tourism, it could not only protect the ruins, but also bring economic benefits to the local community. The NES inscription, a message from an ancient faith. At Nescliffe Hill Fort in England, an enigmatic inscription carved into a slab of red sandstone has puzzled archaeologists so much that they turned to the public for help. The fort itself dates back to the Iron Age, around 500 BC. The NES carving appears circular, with an antlered creature holding an unknown object at its center. Although heavily weathered, the image evokes an unsettling feeling, as if it depicts a sinister power. The fort was once occupied by an unknown tribe before the Romans seized control of the area in the 2nd century. While no definitive explanation has been found, some archaeologists, including Paul Riley, believe the carving represents a mysterious horned god, perhaps linked to an ancient cult. Prehistoric mystery. Who made the first stone tools? For a long time, scientists believed that only species within the Homo genus were capable of developing complex tools. However, a discovery in Kenya has challenged this belief. Stone tools dating back 3 million years suggest that another species may have invented this technology long before our human ancestors. The artifacts were unearthed at what was once an animal butchering and plant processing site, now known as the Oldowan Toolkit, a critical milestone in human evolution. This marks the first appearance of standardized tools, with some stones specifically crafted for cutting meat and others for processing plants. Even more surprising, alongside the tools, scientists found molar teeth belonging to a hominin species called Paranthropus. This finding raises the question, was it Paranthropus, not Homo, that first developed stone tool technology? Professor Rick Potts of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History calls this a fascinating prehistoric case. Additionally, researchers discovered 3 butchered hippo carcasses at the site, proving that hominins were hunting large animals as far back as 3 million years ago. This suggests that our ancestors and other hominin species may have contributed to more extinctions than previously thought. The ancient city of Baalbek. Few people know about Baalbek, but they should. Located in Lebanon, 3,000 feet above sea level in the Beka Valley. Baalbek was known as Heliopolis during Roman times. However, its history stretches back much further, 7,000 years BC, according to evidence uncovered by a German archaeological team in 1898. Before speaking of the stones, one must mention the deity after whom the city is named Baal. This name once inspired fear, and not without reason. Baal was one of the gods condemned in the Bible. But what scripture does not say is that Baal was originally a sky god, equivalent to Zeus in Greek mythology. According to ancient Phoenician legend, when Baal descended from the heavens to the mortal world, Baalbek was the very place where he set foot. Some have taken this legend literally, suggesting Baal was not a deity but an extraterrestrial being. They believe Baalbek was constructed as a landing platform, so this sky god, or visitor from the stars, could freely come and go. In essence, the ancient Phoenicians may have witnessed beings so powerful that they mistook them for gods. As servants of these divine figures, they built a massive stone platform for Baal, or an otherworldly traveler, to land his craft. Many believe physical evidence still supports this claim. 2. Ram Setu, the bridge of myth and stone. Ram Setu, also known as Adam's Bridge, is a real location shrouded in countless mysteries. These are the remains of a narrow land bridge that once connected India to Sri Lanka. Only a few thousand years ago, people could walk from the southern tip of India across this bridge to reach northern Sri Lanka. Geologists insist it is merely a submerged sand and rock formation, a natural phenomenon with nothing mythical about it. They claim Ram Setu has no ties to legend, being no different from other landforms worldwide. But is that really the case? The bridge stretches over 30 miles, most of it submerged under just a few feet of water. Strikingly, no comprehensive study has ever been conducted here. Scientists can speculate, but there is not enough evidence to confirm whether this structure is entirely natural or man-made. Some geologists note that the rocks in the middle of the bridge are around 7,000 years old, while the sand at both ends is only about 4,000 years old. This suggests that the stones may have been transported from elsewhere, implying the bridge might have been deliberately constructed. In Hindu mythology, Ram Setu is the bridge built by the god Rama with the help of the monkey god Hanuman and his army to cross the sea and rescue his abducted wife, Sita. Local records claim the bridge remained walkable until the 15th century. In 1480, a massive storm swept away the last remnants, submerging the structure entirely. The Valley of Diamonds. Sinbad the Sailor is one of history's most legendary adventurers. Tales of his exploits began circulating in the Islamic world around the same time England was telling stories of King Arthur. According to legend, Sinbad was from the area near Baghdad during the 8th century under the Abbasid Caliphate. He embarked on 7 voyages across the African and Asian seas, facing mystical creatures and bizarre monsters. Most scholars believe Sinbad was a fictional character, but this remains speculation. No one can say for sure whether the hero of 1001 Nights, the companion of Ali Baba and Aladdin, ever truly walked the sands of time. In one of his most memorable adventures, Sinbad became stranded on a deserted island. There, he fought giant birds, battled massive serpents, and stumbled upon a valley overflowing with diamonds. At the bottom of this valley, the gems shone so brightly that Sinbad could have bought an entire fleet of ships. Many have speculated that the Valley of Diamonds may have been a real place, perhaps located in India, where the first diamonds were discovered in riverbeds thousands of years ago. Idanre Hill, the hidden village among the sky rocks. Idanre Hill is an almost invisible village in Ondo State, Nigeria. One glance at the photos is enough to make one doubt it belongs to Africa at all. The landscape is stunningly otherworldly, as if lifted from a legend, with giant rocks rising above lush green meadows. The village sits nestled among the Idanre rock formations, massive magma outcrops formed more than 500 million years ago, towering like smooth mountains, disappearing into the clouds. Its history is equally mysterious. The Idanre people lived hidden among rocks, mist, and grassy valleys for thousands of years, completely isolated from the outside world. They had no contact with Western civilization until the 19th century. The Yoruba inhabitants of Idanre worshipped gods linked to the giant stones until Christian missionaries arrived in 1894, erasing the old beliefs. Although most villagers today follow Christianity, they still preserve certain ancient traditions as part of their cultural memory. The mystery of the megaliths. The ancient city of Baalbek was built upon a colossal stone platform, so massive it seems to serve only one purpose as a landing site for vessels from the sky. When experts fail to explain why the platform exists, countless theories arise. What makes this place even stranger are the stones themselves. Some at Baalbek are so enormous they defy logic. More than 20 meters long, 4.5 meters wide, and 4.5 meters thick, weighing up to 1,500 tons. How they were cut and transported has baffled scientists for decades. In most ancient structures worldwide, building blocks rarely exceed 2 or 3 tons. Even the Romans, with their advanced technology, typically cut stones, weighing only about 3 tons for their constructions. Imagine moving a 3-ton block with only ropes and manpower. That alone is a marvel. Yet the stones at Baalbek weigh 500 times as much. The more experts study, the deeper the mystery becomes. One of the most perplexing facts is that this massive platform is not mentioned in any Greek or Roman texts, despite being the only structure of its kind in the world. The Greeks and Romans meticulously recorded everything, yet they remained silent about Baalbek, a silence filled with questions. Over thousands of years, Baalbek became home to many civilizations. Before it became the city dedicated to the god Baal, it was used by the Egyptians as a religious center for the worship of Ra. Biblical archaeologists have also linked Baalbek to the city of Baalath mentioned in the book of Joshua. Baalath is described as lying in the valley of Lebanon beneath Mount Hermon. The text recounts that Joshua captured the entire land, including Baalath, seizing their kings and executing them all. The Great Stupa. The Great Stupa at Sanchi is one of the most magnificent stupas in the Buddhist world, a name that truly fits its grandeur. But what exactly is a stupa? Most people know only that it is a religious monument, without much understanding beyond that. The word stupa comes from Sanskrit, meaning heap of earth, reflecting the structure's earliest form, a simple burial mound. Ancient Buddhists transformed this concept into a more durable stone structure. The earliest stupas were merely stone-covered mounds that contained a fragment of the Buddha's remains. Early architects shaped these mounds into circular forms, then reinforced them with stone to ensure durability. Over time, the stupa became a sacred place of worship. The legend traces back to the period following the Buddha's death and to Emperor Ashoka, who ruled most of the Indian subcontinent from 269 to 232 BC. According to tradition, Ashoka built as many as 84,000 stupas across the land, dividing the Buddha's relics among them. While historians doubt the accuracy of this number, the Great Stupa remains an astonishing masterpiece. Rising 54 feet high and spanning 120 feet across, this monument was built in the birthplace of Queen Devi, the daughter of a merchant from the small village of Sanchi. The stupa not only honors the Buddha, but also stands as a tribute from the emperor to his beloved wife. At its core, the sacred relics of the Buddha are believed to remain enshrined. The project was so significant that Ashoka himself personally oversaw its construction. The Ishtar Gate. The Ishtar Gate was built in 575 BC by the legendary king Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon. It was one of 8 gateways leading into the ancient city of Babylon, located in what is now Iraq. Although it was the 8th gate, it quickly became the city's main entrance. This structure was part of the king's grand plan to transform Babylon into a dazzling jewel of the ancient world. His vision also included restoring the temple of the god Marduk and creating the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of history's most famous wonders. The Ishtar Gate's splendor once earned it a place among the 7 wonders of the ancient world, before it was later replaced by the Lighthouse of Alexandria. While the lighthouse has vanished completely, remnants of the Ishtar Gate still survive today. When it was excavated in 1902, archaeologists uncovered a 45-foot section of the original structure. Although its full dimensions remain uncertain, experts estimate the gate once stood over 50 feet tall and 100 feet wide. Made of glazed blue bricks, the Ishtar Gate shimmered like a giant jewel, decorated with images of lions, bulls, and dragons, all dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, deity of love, war, and fertility. Valhalla, the legendary hall of the Vikings. One unique belief made medieval Viking warriors so fearsome their faith in Valhalla. In Norse mythology, Valhalla was known as the Hall of Fallen Warriors. They believed that those who died bravely on the battlefield would have their souls carried by Valkyrie warrior maidens to the sacred hall, where the greatest heroes of the past gathered. According to legend, when the end of the world Ragnarok arrived, the immortal warriors of Valhalla would rise again to fight against the forces of chaos. But was Valhalla a real place? The answer is not simple. Some scholars argue that the Old Norse word Valhill originally did not mean hall, but rock. Its earliest meaning may have been the Rock of the Fallen. There is not nines of the taking and division redder. In the early stages of Norse mythology, this was seen as an eternal battlefield where souls continued fighting beneath the shadow of sacred stones. Over time, the Rock of the Dead gradually evolved into the Hall of Warriors. Some theories suggest Valhalla originated from a massive battle in the Nordic mountains, where blood once stained the stones red, leaving an indelible mark on folk memory. Ancient Carthage. There was a time when Carthage was the largest, wealthiest, and most powerful city-state in the entire Mediterranean. Originally called Kart Hadasht by the Phoenicians, Kadon by the Greeks, and later Carthago by the Romans, it became a mighty empire that rivaled Rome itself. Ironically, most of what humanity knows about Carthage today comes from the very empire that destroyed it, Rome. From 264 to 146 BC, Rome launched 3 wars against Carthage, culminating in the city's total destruction. Its ruins now lie near modern Tunis in North Africa. Legend says Carthage was founded in 814 BC by Queen Dido of the Phoenicians. 5 centuries later, the city flourished as refugees fled from Alexander the Great's conquests in 332 BC. Carthage grew into an empire with colonies stretching to Sicily and Spain. Its history is as complex and mysterious as Rome's Blos, spanning 5 distinct eras: the early Carthaginian period, Roman control until 439 AD, Vandal rule until 534, Byzantine rule until 698, and finally, the Islamic Arab conquest lasting until 1270. After that, Carthage's power truly ended, though people continued to live there. The ancient ruins remained forgotten until modern archaeologists began excavating the site in the 1830s. Valiant Thor. On March 15, 1957, a strange event was said to have taken place in Alexandria, Virginia. A being from Venus, calling himself Valiant Thor, was reported to have landed on Earth. Immediately after appearing, he requested to meet the President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower. What astonished witnesses was that this being did not resemble a monstrous alien. Instead, he appeared as a tall human man who stepped out of his spacecraft in a field. Soon after, Valiant Thor was taken directly to the Pentagon. The mysterious man claimed to be an emissary from his world, arriving on Earth with the mission to assist humanity. He was said to possess extraordinary abilities, the power to restructure his body at the molecular level, a capability akin to teleportation. Most notably, he had 6 fingers on each hand, like the Kandahar giant, and instead of blood, copper oxide flowed through his veins. But how much of this incredible story is true? Unfortunately, no one can confirm. It is said that footage of the alien craft once existed, but it has never been found. Photographs allegedly taken at the Pentagon in 1957, when Thor was supposedly present, only show an unidentified man, nothing more. Guilo, the city, buried in lava. On the shores of Lake Diogo in Mexico lie the remnants of an ancient city known as Guilo. This city rose nearly 3,000 years ago, around 800 BC, serving as a major ceremonial and trade center for the region. About 20,000 people once lived here, building pyramids, large plazas, temple foundations, and monumental structures typical of a powerful Mesoamerican civilization. Its economy thrived on agriculture, nourished by the fertile lands of the Mexican Valley. But the residents of Guilo failed to realize they had built their city next to a massive volcano. Around 100 AD, as the pre-classic period drew to a close, the Chittorgarh volcano erupted violently. Lava cascaded across Guilo, burying everything under a sheet of molten rock. The city was immediately abandoned. Survivors fled to larger centers, such as Toluca and Thiac. The culture of Guilo later merged into that of the Wakan civilization, where the refugees helped establish a new power that lasted 5 centuries. Gorgosaurus, North America's fierce predator. 75 million years ago, Gorgosaurus roamed the plains of North America. Its name, from Greek, means dreadful lizard, but even that fails to capture its true ferocity. Gorgosaurus measured about 9 meters in length, weighing over 3 tons, with serrated teeth capable of tearing prey apart. Although it had small forearms, it remained an apex predator at the top of the food chain during the late Cretaceous. Fossils of Gorgosaurus have been found extensively in Canada, suggesting they may have hunted in packs. For the herbivores of that time, facing a group of Gorgosaurus was a true nightmare. The fortress that changed history. Archaeologists have just uncovered what may be the world's oldest fortress, dating back 8,000 years. It stands isolated in the frigid Siberian wilderness, where few would expect such a monumental relic to exist. Rewind to 6000 BC, when a group of hunter-gatherers built an unprecedented defensive stronghold. Positioned atop a hill, surrounded by rivers and dense forests, it was a perfect location to repel any threat. The fortress walls were made of wooden stakes reinforced with earth, forming a solid barrier. Inside, archaeologists found traces of houses, fire pits, and tools, showing it was home to a small but organized community. What makes this discovery groundbreaking is its age. The concept of constructing a fortified settlement during the hunter-gatherer era is extraordinary, predating all known forms of defensive architecture by millennia. It proves that people of that time understood the importance of strategic defense and territorial control. Some researchers believe the fortress was not only for protection but also a symbol of power. Its builders may have been asserting dominance over the surrounding land, laying the foundation for future societies. the Siberian fortress raises more questions than it answers. Why was it built in such a remote place? Who were the people that constructed it? And what threats were they facing? Could this be evidence of an advanced culture that humanity has yet to fully comprehend? The sea monster, terror of the ancient oceans. In Chile, scientists have discovered the remains of one of the largest marine predators to have ever existed. The fossil of this prehistoric beast was found in the middle of the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth. Today, the Atacama is barren, covered in dust and rock, but millions of years ago, it lay beneath the Pacific Ocean. This allowed scientists to unearth numerous fossils of ancient marine reptiles. The extinct creature is a pliosaur, an apex predator with a bite stronger than that of the Tyrannosaurus rex. Around 160 million years ago, pliosaurs dominated these waters. Archaeologists found parts of its jaw, a tooth fragment, and several limb bones. Rodrigo Otero from the University of Chile explained that the pliosaur resembled modern killer whales, with a massive skull, enormous teeth to rip apart prey, and limbs functioning as powerful flippers. He emphasized that the Atacama Desert is a fossil treasure trove, potentially hiding thousands, if not millions, of animal remains beneath its surface. Thonis-Heracleion. Before Alexandria rose to power, Thonis-Heracleion was one of ancient Egypt's most important seaports. Located near the Nile's mouth opening into the Mediterranean, the city served as a gateway connecting Egypt with the Western world. The Egyptians called it Thonis, while the Greeks named it Heracleion in honor of the hero Heracles, whom they believed had once set foot there. Thonis-Heracleion was also home to a magnificent temple dedicated to the god Amun, where pharaohs performed coronation ceremonies before traveling to Memphis. However, around the 2nd century BC, the city suddenly disappeared. Generations of scholars believed it was destroyed by a natural disaster or slowly declined as other ports rose to prominence. For over a millennium, its exact location remained a mystery. It was not until the early 2000s that French explorer Franck Goddio and his archaeological team used sonar technology to investigate the waters of Abu Qir. There, they discovered ruins buried beneath layers of silt, including statues, inscriptions, and entire structures preserved underwater. Today, Thonis-Heracleion is considered one of the greatest underwater archaeological discoveries in human history, a city frozen in time, lying silently on the ocean floor. Petra, the Rose City, carved in stone. Hidden deep within the red cliffs of Jordan, Petra is one of the most famous ancient cities in the world. Known as the Rose City because of its distinctive pink sandstone, it was once the capital of the Nabatean kingdom beginning in the 4th century BC. Petra reached its peak in the 2nd century BC, thanks to its strategic location along a major trade route where caravans transported frankincense, myrrh, and spices. The Nabateans built their city right in the heart of the desert, and through their mastery of water management, they created an elaborate system to collect rainwater and irrigate crops, turning Petra into a living oasis amid the barren landscape. But Petra's secrets could not remain hidden forever. In 106 AD, the city was annexed by the Roman Empire. Under Roman control, Petra slowly declined due to shifting trade routes and devastating earthquakes. By the time Western explorers stumbled upon it in the 19th century, the city had been abandoned for centuries. Today, Petra is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Its most iconic structure, Al-Kazne, known as the Treasury, is carved directly into the rock face, leaving visitors awestruck by its breathtaking beauty. Derinkuyu, the underground city beneath the earth. Beneath the region of Cappadocia in Turkey lies Derinkuyu, an ancient underground city of staggering scale, once capable of sheltering more than 20,000 people. The entire city was carved from soft volcanic rock and extends multiple levels, deep reaching as far as 18 stories below ground. Inside Derinkuyu is a complex network of residential areas, churches, stables, kitchens, wineries, water wells, and even schools. The city features ventilation shafts, deep wells, and secret passageways, all ingeniously designed to ensure survival and defense during times of conflict. It is believed that Derinkuyu was first built in the 8th century BC by the Phrygians, and later expanded by early Christians fleeing persecution. During periods of war and invasion, particularly between Arab and Byzantine forces, Derinkuyu became a safe haven for thousands of lives. The city remained completely forgotten until 1963, when a local resident accidentally broke through a wall in his basement, uncovering a tunnel that led to a vast labyrinth deep underground. This accidental discovery opened the door to one of Turkey's greatest archaeological wonders. The ruined palace of King John. Amid the legendary Sherwood Forest, where Robin Hood is said to have roamed, stands one of England's most mysterious ruins, the Palace of King John. This 800-year-old ruin is now nothing more than a grassy field where sheep grazed. Known as King John's Palace, the king himself only stayed there for 9 days, and in reality, it was simply a royal hunting lodge. It is believed that his father, King Henry II, had it built as a retreat after exhausting hunts. In the Middle Ages, kings would travel with their queens, nobles, hunting dogs, and entire retinues to remote lodges like this, of hunting wild boar or deer before returning to rest, much like modern travelers enjoying weekend resorts. By the 16th century, this custom faded. In 1525, the Sherwood Lodge was abandoned and collapsed. By the 18th century, maps labeled the site only as the King's House. Today, only 3 lonely walls remain, once part of a grand hall that could accommodate an entire royal entourage. The mystery lies not only in the palace, but in the man whose name it bears. King John is remembered as one of England's worst rulers. Reigning from 1199 to 1216, he lost nearly all of England's hard-won territories in France, earned the hatred of his nobles, and was forced to sign the Magna Carta before dying of dysentery. No one knows what King John did in Sherwood, or how long he truly stayed. If legend holds any truth, perhaps he once crossed paths with Robin Hood in these very woods. The Giants of Ireland. In the 18th century, real giants walked the island of Ireland. They were not legends, but living people whose existence was documented. These men earned their livelihood by touring Europe, becoming attractions in traveling shows, where audiences paid just to gaze up at someone standing 8 feet tall. Cornelius McGrath, born in 1736, died in Dublin in 1760, at the height of 7 feet 5 inches. His skeleton was displayed at Trinity College Dublin in 1902, where Professor D.J. Cunningham noted that Cornelius had been frail, nearly blind, and suffered from weakened knees. That same year, Patrick Cotter was born. He became one of only 12 people in modern medical history confirmed to have reached 8 feet in height. Patrick died in Bristol in 1806 at the age of 46. When his skeleton was exhumed in 1972, scientists confirmed he had indeed been a true giant. Charles Byrne, born in 1761, was another Irish giant, standing 7 feet 8 inches tall. In 1782, he arrived in London and instantly became a sensation. However, his health rapidly declined, and he died just a year later at only 22. The story of Charles took a macabre turn when his body was stolen and sold to surgeon John Hunter, who displayed it publicly. In the 20th century, scientists examined his skull and found he had a pituitary tumor, causing excess growth hormone, a condition now known as gigantism. In 2009, Professor Marta Corbin analyzed Charles's DNA and discovered he carried a mutation of the AIP gene. By 2010, 54 modern Irish individuals were identified as carrying the same mutation. This bloodline still exists today. Tracing it back, scientists found a common ancestor of Ireland's giants lived roughly 1,500 years ago. This raises a haunting question. Was it merely a genetic mutation passed down? Or do the origins of these giants reach deeper, perhaps tied to ancient legends of the Nephilim, when giants once ruled the earth? Ireland is filled with stories of other giants, a 7-foot woman from the Isle of Pish, Edmund Malone said to have been 10 feet tall who met King Charles II, and towering figures like Patrick Murphy, James Kirkland, and James MacDonald, all as if they were members of a living family portrait of Goliath. Porta Nigra, the Black Gate. Porta Nigra, or the Black Gate, is one of the best preserved Roman gates, standing in the German city of Trier. Built nearly 1900 years ago from massive sandstone blocks, it was originally part of the city's defenses. When first completed, its stones were pale, but over centuries, they darkened, earning the gate its name. In the 2nd century AD, when it was constructed, neither Trier nor Germany existed as we know them today. The gate was one of 4 entrances to the Roman city of Augusta Treverorum. The others have long since vanished. In 1804, during his European campaigns, Napoleon Bonaparte visited Trier and was so captivated by Porta Nigra that he ordered it restored to its former glory. Although only partially refurbished, the gate remains primarily an authentic Roman structure. Today, Porta Nigra is one of the very few Roman ruins left in Germany, a reminder of the empire's reach into northern Europe. Ciudad Perdida, Colombia's lost city. Deep in the dense mountains of Colombia lies an ancient city known as Ciudad Perdida, literally, the lost city. Founded around 800 AD, it was once the pinnacle of the pre-Columbian Tairona culture. The Tairona people had lived in the region since the early 1st millennium, initially as scattered communities in the jungle. As their technology and organization advanced, they built larger settlements, of which Ciudad Perdida was their crowning achievement. Perched on a mountainside, the city was home to about 3,000 residents. Archaeologists have uncovered more than 200 structures, mostly wooden, spread across 169 terraces, connected by stone pathways and small plazas. Yet, many aspects of the Tairona culture remain a mystery. This great city was abandoned in the 16th century after the arrival of the Spanish, but there is no evidence they were the cause. When explorer Gonzalo Fernández de Oviedo arrived in Santa Marta in 1498, it seemed the Tairona had already begun withdrawing from the city. Mag Mell, the paradise of the Irish. Mag Mell is a mythical land in Irish folklore equivalent to Greece's Arcadia or Asia's Shambhala. According to legend, Mag Mell was an island lying somewhere west of Ireland, though only certain individuals could reach it. The ancient Irish believed it was real. Mag Mell was a land without pain, poverty, or death. Anyone who set foot there would live forever, enjoying every earthly pleasure without ever aging. To the people of Eerie, Mag Mell was paradise on earth. The myth says Mag Mell was ruled by King Tethra of the Fomorian race, making it unique, as ancient paradises rarely had kings. This has led scholars to wonder, did a real island once exist near Ireland, home to a small group of extraordinary people who inspired the legend? With the rise of Christianity, Mag Mell shifted from a purely mythical realm to a more tangible island, rumored to have been visited by early seafarers crossing the Atlantic. The mysterious discovery of Machu Picchu. Almost everyone knows of Machu Picchu in Peru, but few know how it was discovered. Just over a century ago, it remained a forgotten city, hidden from the modern world. The man who found Machu Picchu was Hiram Bingham, an American explorer born in 1875 in Hawaii. Although his parents were missionaries, Bingham chose a different path. After graduating from Yale, he became fascinated by South American history. In 1900, he married Alfreda Mitchell, heiress to the Tiffany fortune, giving him the resources for his adventures. From tracing Simón Bolívar's routes through Venezuela and Colombia to exploring South America's trade networks, Bingham was always in search of the mysterious. In 1911, he set out to find a lost Inca city rumored to be the last refuge during the Spanish conquest. Bingham traveled to Cusco, crossed the jungle, climbed the Andes, and finally stumbled upon Machu Picchu. The Inca ruins emerged before him, overgrown with jungle, draped in vines, covered in moss, and tangled with bamboo. The Machu Picchu we see today has been cleared and preserved, but when Bingham discovered it, it was nameless, traceless, and hidden in the clouds of the highland forest. The giant pyramid of Cholula. The Pyramid of Cholula is the largest pyramid in the world. Today, it lies buried beneath a hill in Mexico, with a Spanish church perched on top, making it hard to recognize the monumental structure beneath. Built more than 2,000 years ago, Cholula surpasses even the Great Pyramid of Giza in size. Yet its origins remain an unsolved mystery. Its architecture bears the influence of the Teotihuacan and Olmec cultures, but no one knows exactly who built it or why it was abandoned. One theory suggests the Aztecs once used it, but when the Spanish invaded, they buried the structure to protect their heritage. Perhaps they knew the Spanish would destroy everything native, and burying the pyramid was the only way to preserve it for the future. Few realize that the world's largest pyramid lies in Mexico, quietly hidden under a green hill. Ancient bows, the weapon that helped humans conquer the world. A recent study published in Science Advances has reached a shocking conclusion. The first Homo sapiens to arrive in southern France 54,000 years ago brought with them an advanced weapon, the bow and arrow. These deadly weapons were far superior to the simple clubs of the Neanderthals, who dominated the region at the time. The research is based on hundreds of small arrowheads excavated at the Grotte Mandrin shelter in the Rhone Valley, along with a child's tooth belonging to a modern human. This suggests that when early humans first set foot in Europe, they possessed superior technology. Just as Europeans later arrived in the Americas with guns, Homo sapiens used bows and arrows to quickly overpower the Neanderthals, driving them to the brink of extinction. Roman pottery, souvenirs from the arena. In 1853, archaeologists discovered a Roman vase in an ancient tomb in England, decorated with images of gladiators locked in combat. Astonishingly, this clay vessel, nearly 2,000 years old, was almost perfectly preserved. Engraved on the vase are two names, Memnon and Valentinus. For years, it was assumed these were the names of slave gladiators, added after the vase was made. A new study reveals the opposite. The names were inscribed before firing, meaning the vase was custom-made to honor these two fighters. Researchers believe it served as an ancient form of memorabilia, similar to modern UFC merchandise bearing fighters' names, but crafted nearly 2 millennia ago in Rome. Etzanoa, the forgotten city of Kansas. Only recently discovered in Kansas, Etzanoa may once have been a bustling metropolis of Native Americans. Its ruins lie along the Walnut River, in what is now the modern city of Arkansas. Researchers estimate that more than 1,000 years ago, around 20,000 people lived here, making Etzanoa the largest known indigenous city in North America. Dr. Donald Blakesley of Wichita State University led the research. He and his team uncovered countless pottery fragments, arrowheads, and other artifacts buried beneath private lands. But the most remarkable find was the city itself. The inhabitants lived here from about 1450 to the 18th century, moving seasonally and spreading across nearby counties. Sadly, much of the city is now buried under asphalt roads, neighborhoods, and commercial buildings. Arkansas City has been built directly on top of the remains of Etzanoa, the tragedy of Banneker. Banneker, a Hellenistic city in ancient Egypt, was destroyed by two catastrophes, drought and volcanic eruption. In truth, its downfall was inevitable from the moment it was founded. Banneker was established in 275 BC by Ptolemy II, the second king to rule Egypt after Alexander the Great's death. In its early years, the city thrived as a major trade port, importing goods from the southern Red Sea, including war elephants. But Banneker relied entirely on the Nile River. Less than a century after its founding, climate shifts caused the river's annual floods to fail. Drought spread, freshwater grew scarce, and crops withered. The root cause was a volcanic eruption in 209 BC, which severely reduced summer monsoon rains across Africa. The river dried, and any city dependent on it faced devastation. 2 years later, a rebellion against the Ptolemaic dynasty erupted, plunging Egypt into chaos. Famine struck, the royal family lost control, and Banneker could not survive. It was abandoned in silence. The vanished trees of Easter Island. Scientists continue to debate what destroyed the ancient civilization of Easter Island. Was it deforestation that ruined the ecosystem? Or was it the arrival of Europeans with their slave raids that decimated the native population? Some suggest a plague of rats triggered the disaster. The island's true name is Rapa Nui, and its shores are guarded by hundreds of colossal stone statues, known as moai. The name Easter Island only came after Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrived on Easter Sunday in 1722. The Rapa Nui culture once thrived, as evidenced by the statues. There are more than 800 moai scattered across the island, most erected between 1400 and 1650. They weigh several tons, with some standing over 10 meters tall. Few know that the moai have full bodies, not just heads, and many once wore stone hats, a detail science still struggles to explain. Around 1350, the island's population peaked at 4,000 and remained stable until Europeans arrived. By 1877, only 111 inhabitants remained. Rapa Nui stood on the brink of extinction. What happened? Consider this. Today, the island has no trees. But for over 30,000 years, it was covered in palm forests. Archaeological evidence shows that just before Europeans arrived, every tree had been cut down. The common theory is that the Rapa Nui felled their forests to move the giant statues. But this lacks proof. It is hard to believe a community so dependent on nature would destroy its own lifeline. Perhaps disease killed the trees, or maybe rats brought on Polynesian ships ate the seeds, preventing regrowth. Whatever the cause, the loss of the forest spelled disaster for the island. Vab Bamba, the last sanctuary of the Inca Empire. Deep in the Amazon jungle lies a little-known ancient city called Vab Bamba, the final hope of the Inca Empire. Even when explorer Hiram Bingham discovered Machu Picchu in 1911, he initially mistook it for Vab Bamba because this city was more famous in legend. When the Spanish invaded Peru in 1529, the Inca Empire fell into chaos. Facing annihilation, the last Inca leaders retreated deep into the jungle, establishing Vab Bamba as their final hidden stronghold. The city was founded in 1536 and sustained the Inca people until 1573, when it was suddenly abandoned for unknown reasons. Perhaps the Spanish never found it, but that did not save it from collapse. It was not until 1964 that American explorer Jean Savoy rediscovered the ruins of Vab Bamba. Today, you can still visit this legendary site, but the journey is not easy. The trail to the city winds through the snow-covered Andes and remote rainforest, taking about 12 days on foot, a challenge only for the truly experienced. The consolation is that you can also stop to see Machu Picchu along the way. Murud Janjira, the impregnable fortress. Murud Janjira is an ancient fortress in India, steeped in history and shrouded in mystery. Today, it stands as a popular tourist attraction, but in the past, it served as an unyielding shield, protecting local inhabitants against attacks from both the Portuguese and the British. Its origins trace back to the 15th century, beginning as something remarkably simple. Fishermen who lived in the area, relying on the sea for survival, built a wooden fort on rocky outcrops along the coast to defend themselves against pirates. At the time, piracy was a serious threat, and even this modest wooden structure was enough to deter invaders. Over the years, the fortress was reinforced. Watchtowers rose, stone walls thickened, and hundreds of cannons were mounted to rain fire upon any would-be attackers. At its height, Murud Janjira is believed to have housed at least 572 cannons, transforming it into an island stronghold that was nearly impenetrable. Time, however, eroded its strength. Today, only 3 cannons remain. Inside the fortress, remnants of the royal palace, mosques, noble residences, stables, granaries, and underground tunnels connecting its various structures still endure. Freshwater reservoirs once sustained the inhabitants for generations, preserving life within this formidable bastion. Great Zimbabwe. Deep within Africa lie the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, the once splendid capital of the ancient Zimbabwe kingdom, which thrived from the 11th to the 15th century. The name Zimbabwe comes from the Shona language, meaning houses of stone, perfectly describing what made this place remarkable. Massive stone walls, constructed entirely without mortar, some rising over 10 meters high. At its peak, Great Zimbabwe may have housed more than 20,000 residents. It was a major trade center, dealing in gold, ivory, and other precious goods, with merchants from as far as China and Persia. By the 15th century, the city was mysteriously abandoned. Scholars continue to debate the reasons climate change, overgrazing, or political unrest may have played a role. When European explorers arrived in the 19th century, they refused to believe that such an impressive city could have been built by native Africans. For decades, racist theories denied the achievements of the ancient Shona. Only when irrefutable archaeological evidence came to light did the world finally recognize Great Zimbabwe as a masterpiece of African ingenuity, a powerful testament to a rich history long ignored. Ilusa, the Byzantine city, buried in garbage. The Byzantine Empire, the last remnant of the ancient Roman world, endured for 1,000 years after the Western Roman Empire fell in the 5th century. But by 1453, even the Eastern Empire had collapsed. One of the earliest warnings of this decline can be traced to the city of Ilusa, located in Israel's Negev desert. Archaeologist Guy Bar Oz of the University of Haifa excavated ancient trash heaps in Ilusa and made a startling discovery. The city's once well-organized garbage collection system abruptly stopped in the 6th century. Layers of accumulated waste spanned 150 years before suddenly disappearing. This revealed the breakdown of infrastructure and public services, a clear sign of a city on the verge of self-destruction. What makes this more remarkable is that Ilusa's decline occurred during an era of peace and prosperity. Under Emperor Justinian, the Byzantine Empire was expanding and flourishing. Yet internally, political chaos undermined the system. Trash piled up, diseases spread, and the city buried itself under its own neglect. Even in times of peace, a city can destroy itself with its own waste. Marek Koshi, the mystery of the Amazon forest. Since the arrival of the Portuguese and Spanish in South America, rumors have persisted of a massive, hairy creature hiding in the dense Amazon rainforest. Not just a lone beast, but an entire tribe of them. Scattered accounts describe ape-like beings living in small groups in the most remote corners of the jungle. Yet because they are so rarely seen, no one can agree on what Marek Koshi truly is. It might be a species of giant ape resembling Bigfoot, an unusually hairy tribe of humans, or perhaps a relic species of ancient primate thought to be extinct. One of the most famous reports of Marek Koshi comes from Colonel Percy Fawcett, the legendary explorer who later vanished while searching for the lost city of Z. In his journal, Fawcett wrote that in 1914, he encountered a group of giant hairy savages. He described them as ape-like, yet they used bows and arrows. This was no mistake. Fawcett was well acquainted with the native tribes of the Amazon. The beings he encountered were entirely different. Their bodies were covered with thick fur like bears. They spoke no human language and only growled in guttural tones. Fawcett and his expedition barely escaped an attack, saved only when gunfire drove the creatures away. The lost civilization of the Amazon. The mystery of the Amazon is not only tied to Colonel Percy Fawcett's disappearance, but also to the legend of the lost city of Z. It began in 1753, when a group of Brazilian bandits documented a lost city filled with immense treasure. This manuscript, known as Manuscript 512, eventually reached Fawcett in the early 20th century, inspiring his relentless quest. World War I interrupted his plans, forcing him to fight in Europe, where he miraculously survived. In 1920, Fawcett ventured into the Brazilian jungle for the first time, but failed, succumbing to illness and losing his pack animals. Refusing to give up, 5 years later, he set out again with his son Jack and friend Raleigh Rimmel. The 3 men vanished into the endless green expanse of the rainforest and were never seen again. To this day, the fate of the expedition remains unknown, and the city of Z lives on only in legend. The Temple of Zeus in Egypt. In Greek mythology, Zeus is the god of gods, lord of the sky, and the thunder-wielding king of Olympus. But his influence was not limited to Greece. Recently, archaeologists discovered a mysterious temple dedicated to Zeus on Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. This temple was built to honor Zeus Cassios, a special variant of the god associated with Mount Cassios, rather than Olympus. This mountain, located on the border between Syria and Turkey, is tied to the legendary battle between Zeus and the monster Typhon. With his thunderbolts, Zeus defeated Typhon, preventing him from seizing the universe. Even today, Mount Jebel Akra is frequently struck by storms, reinforcing the ancient belief that it is connected to Zeus. The Sinai Temple was identified by Egyptian archaeologists, though their work was challenging. The structure was almost completely destroyed, its massive pink granite columns shattered likely by earthquakes. Only fragments of granite and remnants of stairways remain as silent witnesses to its past grandeur. Kohito, the forgotten city in the sky. In the little-known country of Eritrea, north of Ethiopia, once stood an ancient city called Kohito, built on a plateau overlooking the Great Rift Valley at an elevation of more than 2,400 meters. It was almost a city among the clouds. Long before the rise of Ethiopia's Aksumite kingdom, Kohito had already flourished. Researchers believe its inhabitants were ancestors of the Aksumites, who appeared around 100 AD and thrived for 6 centuries afterward. Kohito was once a powerful urban center, its influence reaching Sudan and the Arabian Peninsula. The city may have traded with both the Roman and Byzantine empires. Though time has erased much, the standing stone pillars and scattered ruins still testify to a golden era that once existed here. Kohito endured as Aksum reached its zenith, but both cities were abandoned around 900 AD, vanishing from history. It was not until the 19th century, when foreign travelers crossed this land, that Kohito's traces were rediscovered, buried beneath desert winds and the dust of time. Aoste, the desert town of the Sahara. Not far from the legendary city of Timbuktu, amid the desolate expanse of the Sahara Desert, once stood an ancient Berber town called Aoste. During the medieval period, it was a vital trading hub where North African merchants rested on their journeys across the desert. Here, traders once purchased gold from the powerful kings of Ghana and distributed goods across the ancient world. Today, the city lies in ruins at a site known as Tida in Mauritania. The builders of Aoste were the Berber people, descendants of North Africa's prehistoric inhabitants. They once lived across a vast range from Morocco to Egypt, from the Mediterranean to Niger. Today, the 2 largest remaining Berber communities are in Algeria and Morocco, where roughly a quarter of Algeria's population still carries this ancient heritage. Before the Arab conquest of the 7th century, they were the earliest settlers of the Sahara, predating the Greeks, Carthaginians, and Romans. Aoste is just one of countless towns swallowed by the desert cities that once shone brightly amid the desolation of history. The door to Nefertiti's tomb. Inside the burial chamber of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, archaeologists have uncovered a series of hidden hieroglyphs. This tomb, famously opened in 1922 by legendary archaeologist Howard Carter, had kept these markings unnoticed for decades. These mysterious carvings may hold a secret powerful enough to rewrite Egyptian history. Researchers suspect there may be a hidden doorway within Tutankhamun's tomb, leading to a larger chamber, possibly the final resting place of Queen Nefertiti. Nefertiti, stepmother of Tutankhamun, was one of Egypt's most powerful queens, yet her tomb has never been found. This is astonishing, as she once ruled with an iron hand, surviving even the turbulent reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, a king reviled by many. Nicholas Reeves, a former curator at the British Museum, discovered traces of paint overlapping earlier images inside the tomb. His analysis revealed that the original artwork depicted Tutankhamun burying Nefertiti, later altered to hide the truth. Reeves believes this proves the tomb was never originally built for Tutankhamun, but rather as an antechamber leading to a much larger complex. Many scientists suspect that beyond this wall lies a concealed door leading to Nefertiti's burial chamber, a secret still waiting to be uncovered. Nazca, the lines of mystery. In the arid Nazca Desert of southern Peru lies one of archaeology's greatest enigmas, the Nazca Line's giant geoglyphs carved directly into the earth over 2,000 years ago, dating from around 500 BC to 500 AD. There are more than 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and about 70 figures depicting animals and plants, including monkeys, hummingbirds, spiders, and whales. Some lines stretch for over 50 kilometers. What makes the Nazca lines so mysterious is that their full designs can only be seen from the sky. The ancient Nazca people could not have viewed their creations in their entirety from the ground, raising endless questions. How did they create them, and why? Some researchers believe they served as astronomical tools or religious symbols. Others suggest they were meant to attract the attention of gods above. Naturally, theories of alien signals also abound. To this day, The true purpose of the Nazca Lines remains an unsolved mystery. The Temple of Pharaoh Amenhotep III. In 2017, during the restoration of Amenhotep III's mortuary temple in Luxor, a German archaeological team discovered 66 fragments of statues depicting the goddess Sekhmet. These statues are believed to have been destroyed in an earthquake during the 18th century BC. 5 years later, archaeologists uncovered a pair of Sphinx statues within the same temple. Despite being 3,400 years old, one statue remains almost perfectly preserved, with the pharaoh's face still clearly visible in the limestone. Amenhotep III built this mortuary temple, known as the Temple of Millions of Years, with the hope that his name would live forever. More than 3 millennia later, the structure still commands awe, a testament to the pharaoh's ambition. Forgotten history in the Syrian desert. In 2009, archaeologist Robert Mason from the Royal Ontario Museum discovered stone structures dating back an estimated 10,000 years while studying an ancient monastery. Mason continued excavating and found additional stone constructions, likely ancient animal traps from the Neolithic era. Although the area is arid today, thousands of years ago, it was lush, a perfect setting for early hunters. The monastery of Dir Marmusa, where Mason made his discovery, carries its own mysteries. Built in the 4th century, it was abandoned after earthquakes and only restored in the 1990s. Mason suspects the monastery may be older than believed, possibly once serving as a Roman water tower watching over the desert near Damascus. The Silk Road, traces of silk and cotton in the desert. Amid the desolate desert between Israel and Jordan, archaeologists uncovered silk and cotton fragments dating back 1,300 years. These fabrics are thought to have been imported from India and China via the Silk Road, one of history's greatest trade networks. Stretching from distant China to the gates of Rome, this route crossed many deadly deserts. Merchants carried exotic goods, particularly silk, which brought them immense wealth for over 15 centuries. The textiles found in the Arava Desert bear designs resembling Indian Ajanta cave paintings dating to the 6th century. They were likely en route to ancient Nubia in southern Egypt when they were lost to the sands. The ancient Edomite temple. During a military training exercise in Israel, a drone accidentally captured images of an ancient structure over 2,200 years old. It turned out to be an ancient temple featuring a rare surviving incense altar. Researchers believe the site was built by the Edomites, a mysterious people mentioned in the Bible. They were not very different from the Israelites, as both lived in the Holy Land for centuries. However, the Edomite kingdom was completely destroyed when the Babylonians attacked in the 6th century BC. The few survivors settled in the southern Judean hills, adopting new names as Idumeans before eventually assimilating into the Jewish population. Because their numbers were so small, few Edomite temples or palaces remain. Archaeologists say discoveries like this one can be counted on one hand, an extraordinary find made possible by a drone survey. The altar is particularly striking, decorated with the image of a bull, likely symbolizing a mysterious deity once worshipped by the Idumeans before their conversion to Judaism. It may have been used in rituals now lost to history, possibly even blood sacrifices. Nalanda Gedige. Nalanda Gedige is regarded as one of Sri Lanka's most spectacular archaeological sites, yet almost no tourists visit it because it lies deep within the sweltering jungle. This ancient temple is cloaked in mystery. No one knows who built it, why such a remote location was chosen, or why it was abandoned. Archaeologists believe it was constructed between the 7th and the 11th centuries, during a time when Indian kings sought to control Sri Lanka. Blending Hindu and Buddhist architecture, Nalanda Gedige likely reflects a cultural fusion of Tamil influences from India and Sinhalese traditions from Sri Lanka. The temple remained hidden by the jungle until 1893, when archaeologist H.C.P. Bell discovered it near rice fields, amid low hills and isolated villages. Bell planned to excavate and restore the site, but the project was never completed. Nalanda Gedige fell back into obscurity until the 1980s, when it was nearly submerged. To save the temple, it had to be dismantled and rebuilt on a protective wall. Though preserved, its true history remains an enigma. Trouwulan, the burned capital. In East Java, Indonesia, there once stood an ancient city named Trouwulan, believed to have been the capital of the powerful Majapahit Empire during the 14th and 15th centuries. However, after a jealous invasion launched by King Grindardhana, the city was burned and gradually forgotten. Trouwulan was only rediscovered in the 19th century by Sir Thomas Stamford Raffles, the British colonial governor of Java. Since then, excavations have revealed fascinating remains. Among the highlights is Candi Tikus, a ritual bathing pool once infested with plague-bearing rats. Another is the towering Bajang Ratu Gate, standing over 14 meters tall, resembling a portal to another world, rivaling any ancient gateway elsewhere. The ruins of Trouwulan are so extensive that researchers believe most of the city is still buried. Because the area has endured multiple eruptions from Mount Kawi, its most significant relics may lie deep beneath layers of mud and ash. Nearby, the Brantas River has repeatedly flooded over the centuries, washing away entire sections of the lost capital. Strange creatures. Life in the hottest place on Earth. Scientists have discovered a new animal species living in one of the planet's harshest environments, the Lut Desert of Iran. This newly found arthropod resembles a shrimp but survives in the scorching heat of the region. Dr. Hossein Raj stated that finding such a creature in an environment this dry and hot is groundbreaking. It was discovered in a seasonal lake, an oasis that appears only during the rainy season and vanishes entirely during droughts. This tiny crustacean has adapted in an extraordinary way. It can survive for decades buried in dry sediment, lying dormant until the rain returns to refill the lake. This ability allows it to endure one of Earth's most extreme environments. The City of the Snake Kings. In the ancient city of Hamu, a powerful Maya metropolis, archaeologists recently unearthed two mysterious tombs. The city reached its peak between 650 and 700 AD, located over 400 kilometers north of modern Guatemala City, deep in the dense jungle. The first tomb was found inside a pyramid, containing the remains of a middle-aged individual with jade-inlaid teeth. Beside the body lay a human shin bone inscribed with symbols, possibly from a relative or a war captive. Whoever was buried here clearly held high status, although their identity remains unknown. The second tomb, also inside a pyramid, contained numerous jade offerings and a necklace believed to be a war trophy. Researchers suggest the necklace once belonged to a king from another city. The serpent imagery carved into the artifact indicates it belonged to one of the mysterious snake kings of the Maya, a dynasty that once controlled much of the Maya world before its empire collapsed. At its height, Hamu was adorned with pyramids, tiered temples, and vast plazas where people gathered for ceremonies and sacred rituals. The mysterious city in Death Valley. Beneath the white salt flats of Death Valley, there may lie a hidden underground city. This is one of the most extreme regions on Earth, where temperatures often exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Water is scarce, and vegetation is sparse. Those who get lost here face almost certain death. Yet the Paiute people tell legends of an underground city called Shen Aha, hidden within a network of tunnels beneath Death Valley. To reach it, one must endure a perilous journey into the land of spirits, where thousands of the dead live happily in a radiant city. In 1931, Dr. Bruce Russell and his friend Daniel Bovee claimed to have discovered a labyrinth of catacombs while digging a well in the area. They reported finding the ruins of an underground city, but never managed to locate the entrance again. Ridiculed, they spent the rest of their lives searching in vain. To this day, no one has found the doorway leading to the ruins of Shen Aha, the underground tunnels of Pilsen. Pilsen, a city in the Czech Republic, holds one of the largest underground tunnel networks in Europe. This system was first dug in the 13th century and continued expanding for 600 years, finally coming to an end in the 19th century. Originally, the tunnels were created as storage cellars. Over time, they were also used to channel water and manage waste. These chambers even played a role in the birth of the famous Pilsner beer. Since the 13th century, residents carved out 3 levels of underground cellars beneath their homes to store food, tools, and beer. Gradually, the tunnels were connected, forming a vast network. By the 19th century, Pilsen had 12 miles of underground passages running beneath the city. When the digging ceased, the tunnels were abandoned, many sections collapsing with time. Today, parts of the network are open to visitors, where medieval artifacts still rest deep below the surface. The Holy Grail Crypt. Amateur archaeologist Barry John Bower is convinced that a secret crypt lies deep beneath West London, safeguarding the legendary Holy Grail, the cup from which Jesus drank at the Last Supper. The Grail has been the most sought-after relic in Christian history for 2,000 years. Barry John believes that its discovery would be the greatest archaeological breakthrough of all time. For years, he followed traces of the Grail through its links to the Knights Templar. He argues that many knights trained secretly at a base in England, now known as Hounslow Heath, before departing for the Holy Land. There, they built a hidden crypt to conceal sacred relics brought back from the Crusades, as their well-known strongholds in Jerusalem and France were no longer safe. Barry John suspects the entrance to the crypt was deliberately concealed near the artificial river Duke of Northumberland. Although no proof has yet been uncovered, he remains determined, hoping one day to unearth the Holy Grail, the lost lords of the Sahara. The Sahara, the largest hot desert on Earth, is a harsh land, yet humans have inhabited it since ancient times. Among the oldest of its inhabitants are the Tuareg, who still roam the desert today, traveling by camel across the sands. The name Tuareg originates from the city of Targa in southern Libya. Though the exact time of their settlement in the Sahara is unknown, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote in the 5th century BC about a Libyan tribe called the Garamantes. believed to be the ancestors of the modern Tuareg. According to Tuareg legend, their origins trace back to Queen Tin Hinan in the 3rd century. Disputes remain over when they conquered the desert, and some traditions even claim they founded the city of Timbuktu in the 11th century. Kronosaurus, the giant sea monster of the Mesozoic. Kronosaurus was an ancient pliosaur that ruled the seas of Australia during the Mesozoic era. With 4 limbs evolved into powerful flippers, it flew through water, hunting large fish, squid, and other marine reptiles. This predator measured up to 9 meters in length, with a massive skull over 2.5 meters long. Its jaws were wide enough to swallow a human whole, and its conical teeth could crush hard shells and pierce the thick hides of massive creatures. Fossils of Kronosaurus have mainly been found in Australia, dating back 120 to 90 million years. Fortunately, this monster no longer prowls the oceans. Quig, the ancient forest of King Arthur. Before Camelot, Welsh legends spoke of a place where King Arthur once ruled Quig, also known as Kellawik, described in the 11th century tale Culhwch and Olwen. This was the first time the name Arthur appeared in literature, long before Geoffrey of Monmouth's famous works. In the original story, Arthur was not the Grand King of Camelot, but a lord ruling over a forested land called Quig, meaning edge of the forest. Its true location remains unknown, but it is mentioned repeatedly in medieval manuscripts and even appears in Welsh records as late as the 19th century. Was Arthur real? If Quig existed, he may have been a modest chieftain living among the mountains and woods of Cornwall, rather than the shining king wielding Excalibur. The Fortress of Chittorgarh. Located in Rajasthan, India, Chittorgarh Fort is the largest military fort in the country and one of the most impressive in the world. Built in the 7th century, under the Maurya dynasty, it embodies centuries of both grandeur and tragedy. Covering over 700 acres, the fort includes palaces, temples, gates, watchtowers, and a large reservoir. In the year 734, Rajput ruler Bappa Rawal seized the fortress, making it the capital of the Mewar kingdom. For centuries, it stood as Mewar's political and cultural heart. Chittorgarh was besieged 3 times in history. The first siege came in 1303 by Alauddin Khilji, captivated by the beauty of Queen Padmini. The second occurred in 1535, when Bahadur Shah of Gujarat attacked. The third and final siege happened in 1567, launched by the Mughal Empire under Akbar. During all 3 sieges, the defenders chose to perform jauhar, a mass self-immolation by women and children to avoid capture. Thousands perished, turning Chittorgarh into an eternal symbol of Rajput courage, honor, and sacrifice. Today, Chittorgarh is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, drawing visitors to its Victory Tower, Queen Padmini's Palace, and the Gaumukh Reservoir that once sustained an entire kingdom. Anomalocaris, the strange predator of the Cambrian. 530 million years ago, the oceans were filled with predators unlike anything seen today. Among them, Anomalocaris, meaning strange shrimp, stood out as the apex hunter of the primordial seas. Fossils of Anomalocaris have been found worldwide, from Canada to China and even Greenland. This ancient creature grew up to 2 meters long, making it a terror to all smaller marine life of its time. It had stalk-mounted eyes with thousands of lenses, granting exceptional vision. It swam rapidly by flexing its body and used spiny appendages to grab prey, shoving it into a circular mouth. The mouth consisted of 32 overlapping plates, but scientists still debate whether they were used for crushing or processing prey in another way. Regardless, its speed, eagle-like vision, and ferocity made Anomalocaris the nightmare of the Cambrian seas, the Arbor Low Stone Circle. The Arbor Low Stone Circle is exactly what its name suggests, an ancient ring of stones. Officially, it is a Neolithic henge, a circular earthwork surrounded by a ditch, constructed by prehistoric people. Located in the Peak District of Derbyshire, England, this site is about 4,000 years old. Initially, builders raised an earthen bank and ditch. Centuries later, they added the stone circle. It remained in use until the Bronze Age before being abandoned and forgotten. Despite millennia of weathering, Arbor Low has not disappeared. Today, around 50 massive limestone blocks still form an oval ring, though only one stone remains upright, leaning precariously as if about to fall. The others have collapsed over time. When intact, this was once a massive stone complex, rivaling Stonehenge. Though the stones are smaller, they are more numerous, and the construction was equally sophisticated. Archaeologists also discovered 2 main entrances, stone pathways, leading into the circle's center. Here, under the open sky, ancient people may have performed mysterious rituals, gazing at the stars of a pristine night. Menhir de Champ Dolent. Menhir de Champ Dolent rises from a cornfield in Brittany, France. It is one of the largest standing stones in the world, and among France's most carefully preserved prehistoric monuments. A menhir is a single standing stone, common during the Bronze Age, found across Western Europe from France to Ireland. The word menhir comes from ancient Breton, meaning long stone. Archaeologists believe menhirs often marked the entrance to burial grounds, differing from stone circles, which were far more complex. Menhir de Champ Dolent is the largest of them all, standing over 30 feet high, weighing nearly 100 tons, and made entirely of pink granite. Local legends say the stone erupted from the ground to stop a bloody battle between two brothers. Another tale claims it fell from the sky, while a third warns that the day the stone topples will mark the end of the world. The El Gem Amphitheater. The El Gem Amphitheater is one of the most significant Roman structures in North Africa. Modeled after Rome's Colosseum, though not an exact copy, it served the same purposes as other Roman arenas: gladiator battles, public speeches, theater, and mass entertainment. It once held up to 35,000 spectators. Today, it stands as a crumbling shell amid the small village of El Gem, Tunisia, yet its grandeur still awes all who see it. Built in the 3rd century AD, the amphitheater lacked foundations and was assembled entirely from massive stone blocks, making it one of the earliest foundationless structures in North Africa during the twilight of the Roman Empire. UNESCO lists it among the greatest amphitheaters ever constructed. Though much of it has collapsed, key parts remain, including the stage platform, the fighting arena, and the underground corridors where backstage operations took place. While El Gem is now a quiet village, it was once the bustling Roman city of Thysdrus. The current amphitheater was the third built there, as the two previous ones had fallen. During the Middle Ages, it served as a fortress where villagers sought refuge during Vandal raids in 430 and the Arab conquest in 647. In the 18th and 19th centuries, its remaining stones were used to produce saltpeter. Despite all this, El Gem still stands defiantly, a timeless witness to human history. If you enjoyed these mysterious stories, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next explorations. See you in the next video.